Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Camille French from First Actuarial. We've got a few people, there's quite a few of you already joined. I'm going to leave it another couple of minutes just to let other people attend if they want to. I will sit very still and just count down the minutes. Okay, so we've had a few more people join. So for those of you who have just joined, my name is Camille French from First Actuarial. I'm joined online with my colleague Tony and Lynn from your HR team. You'll see there's a Q&A button at the top of your screen. If you've got any questions, please just pop them in that Q&A. It is confidential, so the only people who will be able to see it is you and Tony and Lynn. So if you've got a personal question or about your own circumstances, feel confident that you can pop it in there and no one else will see it apart from Tony and Lynn. So as I mentioned, I work for a company called First Actuarial. So we were established back in 2004 by 9 actuaries. We've now grown to over 500 employees, and that's all from people just joining the company. We haven't taken over any companies. We specialise in workplace pensions and benefits, and we work directly with companies such as CHP and trustees of schemes and employees, where we can give guidance and financial education such as this. Why I'm here today is to explain how pensions work in general and your scheme. I'm not here to provide you with financial advice or sell you anything. Although we are an independent pensions consultancy, we're not actually authorised to provide financial advice to individuals. Although I am a strong advocate for financial advice, and I will get on my soapbox a little bit towards the end of the presentation and explain why it may be good to consider that at certain times. The last thing on there, there are no daft questions where pensions are concerned. That really is true, because every time you think that you completely understand everything that's going on, there'll be a budget or there'll be a change in government and they start tinkering around the edges again. So please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A chat function. So this is what we're going to run through. So an introduction to your scheme, and then we'll touch on all the other points. I should also say at the end, Tony will come on and he will explain if there have been any sort of like themes in questions, and give you an opportunity to ask questions at the very end as well. So we'll start with introductions to pensions and the CHP scheme. If we start with the 2 different types of pensions in the UK, so depending on your age, you may have a defined benefit scheme. They're also known as either final salary or care schemes, career average earning schemes. What these do is provide you normally with a guaranteed benefit or wage in retirement, and the benefits are actually calculated by a formula. Because of that, the benefits that you would get are certain, however the costs are uncertain, and it means that both employee and employer pension contributions can increase over time and can become quite costly. The other type of pension, which is the one that you have with the Aviva plan, is a defined contribution scheme. And this is where contributions are paid from both you and CHP into your pension pot. and then depending on how much is there when you get to retirement and how you decide to take your benefits at retirement, that will decide how much pension you get and what your benefits will actually be. So a complete flip from defined benefit, defined contributions. Benefits are uncertain because you have a lot more flexibility around them. However, the costs are certain. So both you and CHP know what they're paying, so you can budget for the months and years ahead. So if we have a look at the Aviva plan, now normally when we attach the word pension to anything, people tend to think it's more complicated than it needs to be. That can be said for the defined benefit schemes, but with a defined contribution plan, it's simply a savings plan and you're trying to get as much money as possible into your plan or your pot. Now, how much is going to be there will depend on various things. So how much has been paid in and for how long, where it's invested and how that's performed and what the charges are. And quite crucially, as I mentioned previously, what the actual the way that you structure your benefits at retirement, so the choices that you make. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover off all of these points. I should have said the presentation itself will last probably about 40 to 45 minutes, and we should be able to cover everything off within that time. So if we have a look at contributions to start with, now you choose how much you want to save. There's a minimum contribution of 3%, and CHP will double match your contributions, and I'll explain that on the next slide. You receive tax relief on your contributions, and salary exchange is available too, and you're automatically popped into the salary exchange scheme unless you aren't eligible for that. Now, salary exchange means that you actually make an even bigger savings, so it's even more cost efficient for you. Now, the contribution levels, as I said, you'll be automatically put in or automatically enrolled at a 3% contribution, and CHP will pay in 6%. They will double match your contributions up to 6%, so then paying 12%. You can pay more if you want to, so you can pay more than the 6%, but the maximum amount that CHP will pay in is 12%. To put that into perspective, the current minimum auto enrolment levels in the UK are a 5% employee and a 3% employer contribution. So you can see that you have got a really good pension contribution and pension scheme at CHP. Now, I mentioned this thing, salary exchange. So those of you who may not have been to one of these presentations before, if we look how a typical scheme would structure their contribution, so this is without salary exchange. So here we've got a chap called Mark, and he's earning £30,000 a year, so £2,500 a month, and he's making a 5% employer contribution. Well, 5% of his salary is actually £125, but because he gets tax relief here of £25, he only actually has to pay in £100. And then because he's paying a 5% contribution, CHP are going to pay 10%. So they've doubled that £125 to £250. So he's going to get £375 paid in. Now, if I could change this into any other kind of savings account, so if I could call this Camille's current account, you give me or my bank £100 each month and I will change it into £375. I would have people queuing from here to Scotland signing up for that. Because it's got the term pension attached to it, and because it is a long-term savings vehicle, people sometimes they don't see the value in it, or they don't necessarily see all the value in it. If you just keep in mind that you are turning, or this person is turning £100 each month into £375, you can see what a good deal it is. By salary exchange and by using that, it actually gets even better. So we now have Maria. Now she's joined via salary exchange. So she's in exactly the same circumstance as Mark. So she's earning £2,500 a month, paying a 5% employee contribution. So her 5% is still £125 a month. But she's got this additional amount here. And this is the national insurance that she would normally have paid if she had her full salary paid to her and then made her pension contribution. What we're doing from salary exchange is turning that part of her pay, so £125, isn't paid as pay, it's paid across as an additional employer pension contribution. So she's not having to pay tax as before, but she's not having to pay national insurance either. So Maria is paying £90 and she's still getting her £375 paid in. So if we put them side by side, you can see that Maria pays £90 for 375, Mark pays £100 for 375. And if they wanted to, they could increase their contributions. And as I said, CHP will match their contributions or double match their contributions up to 6%. So if they were paying in 6%, CHP would pay in 12%, which makes it even better. Now, one of the things I said that would have an impact on how much is in your plan of retirement are the charges. So the charges that you have through your Aviva pension pot is an annual management charge of 0.32%. What does that mean in actual fact? Well, for every £10,000 you have in your pension with Aviva, they will be charging you throughout the year £32 for them to actually manage your pension plan for you. There are other funds that are available that may have different charges, but they will have a discount on there for you. And that discount has been negotiated between Aviva, ourselves and CHP. So to put this into perspective, a typical pension arrangement in the UK, the pensions regulator said that the maximum charge can be 0.75%. So that would be £75 per £10,000 that is looked after for you. So you can see that you've got less than 50% of the typical charge that is made on UK pensions today. So it is a very, very good scheme, not only with the contribution rates, but also with the charges that have been negotiated on your behalf. So we'll have a look now at this is a very how long is a piece of string question? How much is enough? So the reason that this is a difficult one to answer is because we're all individuals and we're all going to have different ideas of what retirement means for us. You need to set a target. So you need to think about what it is you're spending today. Think about the things that are going to reduce. So when you get to retirement, hopefully, if you've got a mortgage, that will be paid off. If you're in rented accommodation, hopefully your children will have left home by then, so you'll be able to move into maybe smaller rented accommodation. You're not going to be having to save for retirement anymore, and you don't have to pay national insurance once you reach your state pension age, and you don't pay national insurance on any pensions that are paid to you. So some spending will go down, but you are going to have more free time on your hand. So you may be spending more time on holidays or leisure activities, joining a gym, joining a golf club, whatever suits, maybe taking up a hobby that you used to do years ago and because of work time didn't permit you to do it. You may well be looking after grandchildren and spoiling them. You may have long-term care needs, and that might be for either yourself or your partner or your parents. So you could have additional spending there. Now, we used to say a very, very rough rule of thumb was aim for around 50% to 75% of your salary, and that should stand you in good stead when you get to retirement. The reason I say that we used to do that is because as a nation, we have changed the way in which we retire. We've changed our the way that we approach it. So whereas it used to be you would have Fred, as I call him, who would work for a company, man and boy, and he would reach age 65 on the Friday, he would reach 65 and then he would retire. And on the Monday, he stopped working, he's drawing his pension and off he goes. What tends to happen now is people will ease themselves into retirement. There's no longer this kind of cliff edge. So what you will tend to look at is people will take tax-free cash and maybe work part-time or give up their highly pressurised job and do something that they want to do, whether or not that's working in a florist or working at B&Q, so that they still get their the interaction with people, but don't have the pressure of maybe their high pressure job as they're working up to retirement. So they can take tax-free cash from their pension and that can support their reduction in earnings. At some point though, you probably will stop working and at that point you're still young and active enough to be able to do all the fun things like the travelling and so on. And that's when your spending will typically increase because you are doing a lot more. You are maybe going around the world and seeing sites that you've had on a bucket list while you've been working because you haven't got the time to make those trips abroad. That's the good part and the fun part. Unfortunately, at some point you will become less active. At some point, age will dictate that you can no longer do jet skiing off of the coast of Barbados or wherever it may be. And at that time, you become less active, so you need less income. So at that point, your ideal afternoon in retirement may be something like pottering around your greenhouse in the garden or sitting down with a packet of biscuits, cup of the tea and watching Homes Under the Hammer. Or something similar. So at that point, your income tends to be less. There's a really good website that's available, and I should say that we will make these slides available because there's some QR codes coming up. Don't feel that you have to snap them now. You can go back to them once the slides are available. The first one is the Retirement Living Standards website. That's done in conjunction with Loughborough University, who each year will look at spending patterns for people in retirement and take into account inflation and so on. What they do is they come up with 6 different incomes, whether or not you're a single person or in a couple, and look at the type of things that people are spending their money on. Now, when we look at retirement and retirement planning, we look at 2 types of income. There is your essential income, which is there for things that you have to pay. So your gas, electricity, food, council tax, TV license, probably still want Sky or Netflix or whatever it may be. So that would all come under your essential income. You then have your desired income, and that's, you know, so that you can do the nice things in life, the holidays and so on. And I would say that the comfortable standard of living, that really is comfortable, and people who are working would probably aspire to have that standard of living because it assumes you're going to go on so many holidays a year. It assumes that you're going to get a new car every 3 or 5 years, that you're going to get home renovations done. So they really do go into it in quite great detail. So what I would suggest you do first is look at your bank accounts and see what goes out on a monthly basis and what is still going to have to continue. And then look at the retirement living standards and think, yep, that's the kind of thing that I want to do. And then you can get a picture of what it is you're on track for, and I'll cover that a bit later, and see how close it is that you are going to get to the type of retirement that you want. One of the first things that you can do is take advantage of additional contributions from CHP if you're not already. So this is what we call the cost of delay. So you can see here, and yeah, it's very easy for me to say just pay as much as you possibly can in. I'm aware we're in a cost of living crisis, and that isn't, you know, not everybody has any expendable income. We're focusing on the here and now and getting food on the table and so on. But what this is showing is that if you've got somebody here, they're paying their 5% contribution, CHP are paying in 10, so this is £375 a month. And if you start at age 25, you've got just over 350,000 at retirement. This is assuming medium growth rates over the course of between now and 65. But you can see this person here at 25 would be projected to have just over 350,000. If they waited until they were 40, they would only have just over 150,000, which is still a lot of money. And it's more than likely that this person at 40 has had pensions elsewhere. But it just goes to demonstrate the difference it can make in starting early. The other thing that makes a difference is if we look here, so this is someone who started with a 6% contribution, and then CHP are matching at 12%, so £450 a month. You can see that the 25-year-old has now gone from having just over 350,000 to nearly 450,000. And the 40-year-old has gone from having nearly 150,000 to over 200,000. So it does make a big difference. For those of you who prefer to see facts and figures, I've got them there for you. And just to make it even easier, we've got here what the difference is. So the difference between the 25-year-old is around 73,000. Between the 40-year-old starting at 5% or starting at 6%, it's 35,000. And again, to put it in perspective with the actual contribution levels, 5% costs £90 a month for this individual on 30,000, 6% costs £108. Now, I know, again, I could say, well, it's only an extra £18, but we're not in the position maybe where we can actually put that additional money in at the moment. It's just to highlight that if your circumstances will allow you to, the sooner you can put in and the sooner you can take advantage of the additional contributions from CHP, the more money you should have in your pension pot when you get to retirement. Now, the other pension that I would like to mention is the state pension. For those of you who may be slightly older or of an older vintage, you may remember the term SERPS, which stood for the State Earnings Related Pension Scheme, which kind of did what it said on the tin. It related the pension you got from the state used to relate to your earnings. It now doesn't. It relates to the number of years that you've paid national insurance. In order to get the full state pension, you have to get 35 years of credits within the state pension. So if you were in SERPS in the past, that will have been converted over to the new state pension for you. And as it stands today, it's just under £12,000. So if you think back to the retirement living standards, the minimum standard of living, and I know no one aspires to be on the minimum, but just to put it in perspective, the state pension, if you've worked for your 35 years, you would already be at £12,000 before you build in any kind of pension that you've got elsewhere. Unfortunately, we don't all have an unblemished national insurance record. We may have the odd missing year. That could be because we worked abroad, or we were self-employed, or we stopped work to bring up children or to look after relatives. So there are any number of reasons why you might have missing years. So what you can do is go onto the .gov website and you can check what your national insurance record is. It could be that you've got some years where you didn't quite pay enough, in which case you should be able to make a voluntary contribution. You can go back 6 years to do that. It will also confirm when your actual state pension is, because it will range between 66 now and going up to 68. So you can get all of the details on there. It might be that you have got a few missing years, but you think, well, okay, my state pension age is 67. I know I'm going to work until then, so I'll be able to have enough years by the time I get there anyway. But it's really good to take control and see what you're on track for your state pension, because that is going to provide quite a chunk of your pension or your income in retirement. Okay, so now I'm going to touch on investments. Now, if you haven't made any choice and you've just been automatically enrolled into the scheme, you will be in the default fund, which is My Future Focus, which is a brilliant fund which will invest in all areas. So it will invest in stocks and shares mainly to start with, but also will invest a little bit in sort of like bonds and cash. And I'll explain what those are in a second. It's a pre-packaged approach for you, so you don't have to do anything. And it calls what's de-risking you as you approach retirement. So as you get closer to retirement and taking your benefit, it will actually put you into some more secure funds, so that if something happens in the stock market just before you retire, your fund isn't going to be adversely affected. So it's really important that you keep your retirement age up to date so that your fund will put you in the right place at the right time. I mentioned stocks and shares and bonds and so on. So there are various other funds that you can invest in. So stocks and shares, they are buying a part of a company. Bonds and gilts, they're loans to either companies or to various governments. Property is commercial property, so shopping centres and the like. And cash is obviously, as it says, it's into various bank accounts throughout the world. If you want to choose your own funds, it's really important that you choose a fund that is correct for you. And you can go onto the Aviva site. I've attached a link there for the Aviva fund fact sheets. That will give you a list of all the funds that are available, and it will tell you what kind of risk rating it is, so that you can make sure that you are comfortable with that type of plan. Now, quite often we will get people saying that they don't like the idea of stocks and shares because you could get back less than you put in. You have to remember that pensions is a long-term investment. Now, the next slide, I do apologise, I realise it is teeny tiny, but it shows it tells a story. And what I mean by that is what we have over here, this slump down here, this is when we went through the global economic crisis back in 2008. So this is where all the wheels fell off and the world was basically in free fall. And if you were retiring at this point, if you had been just in stocks and shares, you will have just suffered a big reduction in your within your pension pot. And this is another reason why it's important that you have your retirement age correct, so that you're not going to be totally invested in stocks and shares when you get towards retirement. But as you can see, pensions, as it says there, is a long-term game. You can see that it recovered within sort of like 7 years. It was way up from where it had started. You can see here, this is COVID. This is when we went into lockdown and furlough, and no one knew what the new world order was going to be. But we recovered, and we recovered quite well and quite quickly. Up here, this is where Putin turned off the taps. This is the Ukraine conflict, and then when oil and gas prices went through the roof. And apologies, I haven't got it up to date. If we were up to today, we would be up to about here. So it's really to show you that over the long term, stocks and shares has always performed and will outperform if you just popped your money in a bank account, which is going to get eroded by inflation, or worse still, just popped it sort of like under your mattress. So if you had it in a bank account, that would probably be to about here at this stage. And the risk you then have is that your fund is not going to have grown by enough to give you a big enough fund in retirement to then be able to give you the pension that you want. So it's everything in balance and moderation. And if you don't choose anything and you keep within the My Focus fund, then Aviva will do all of it for you. The investment managers at Aviva, who are paid to manage the funds, will do it all for you. So we'll now have a look at the options that are available at retirement. And probably the first thing is, when can I get my money? Well, with this plan, you can currently retire from the age of 55, which you can do from the Aviva plan. That is going up to age 57 from 2028. The reason for that is that's when the state retirement age is also going up to 67. And what they tend to do is keep 10 years between the state retirement age and the earliest age that you can take money from a pension. So as you can see here, minimum age under the Aviva scheme at the moment is 55. It's going to 57 from 2028, and you need to stop contributing by age 75. I've highlighted again, choose your own target retirement age. If your circumstances change, that's fine. You can go on and you can change your retirement age. You might say, I'm going to retire at 62, and then think, do you know what? No, I'm going to go at 65. You can do that. You might say, actually, no, I'm going to go at 57. You can do that. And what it will then do over the course of the next sort of like months and year is move you into the right place. So you'll be in the right risk profile for your journey to retirement. When you eventually get there, you've got various options. Now, it used to be that the option for a pension such as this was taking 25% of your fund as a tax-free amount, and the rest of it would be an annuity, a pension annuity or a guaranteed income. Way back, I think about 2015, this thing called pension freedoms was introduced. So this has made it much, much more flexible in the way that you can take things. So you don't have to take a guaranteed income anymore. You can do this thing called flexible drawdown, where you can, it's a bit like a bank account, so you can leave it invested and just take income as and when you need. You could take it all out, you could draw all of it out. There are tax implications, or you could keep working. In any of those options, you can take 25% tax-free cash. So it's brilliant that it's more flexible. Unfortunately, what that has caused is a little bit of confusion, because when you join the pension scheme, you don't have to make any decisions whatsoever. But when you get to the other end of the journey, you then have to decide what to do. And I would suggest that that is the time when you would potentially seek to have a look at getting some financial advice. What we'll do now is look at each one in turn. So you've got your pension annuity, your guaranteed income. So you can take your 25% of your plan out tax-free. And then really what you're doing is swapping what's left for a guaranteed income for either the rest of your life or for a specified period. So it could be that this arrangement is, you know, part of your pension arrangements, and it's a smaller part, and you've got a pot there, and you might say, do you know what, I really want to go at 63, but I've got other pensions that aren't going to kick in until 65. What I'll do is I'll use my CHP pension to just bridge the gap between 63 and 65, or 62 and 65. So you can do that if you want to, or you could have it payable for the rest of your life. If you decide to go down that route, or you've got any friends or family who are looking at this at the moment, it's the only time in insurance company history, because pension providers are normally insurance based. It's the only time when having a poorer health history will actually go in your favour. So if you have been a heavy smoker in the past. If you like the odd glass of Prosecco, if you've got higher blood pressure or diabetes, or you've got any other underlying health conditions, or you've had a nasty illness in the past that you're still in recovery from, quite simply and quite brutally, what the pension provider will do is look at you and think, well, you're probably not going to live as long as the marathon running teetotaler who is sitting to your right, and therefore we can afford to give you more money than we can them, because we don't think we're going to have to pay it for as long. So it really is important that you record everything if you decide to go down this route. The other thing that you need to bear in mind is that you choose how it's going to be structured. So you can decide whether or not you want your spouse or partner to receive a pension if you pass away. You decide whether or not there's any guarantee period. So if you pass away, there's an element of your fund being paid back. If you don't build these things in and you pass away quite soon after retirement, you could get back less than your original fund value. And the key thing here is, once you've started, there is no turning back. So you can't get a couple of months in and they go, actually, do you know what, I think I'd prefer that flexible thing. You can't do that. Once it's started, it's started. Talking of the flexible thing, so we have here the flexible drawdown. So this is a bit like a bank account. So you can take your full tax-free cash up front, or you can take it in chunks. You can then have a regular income that's set each year, or you can just leave it there and take an income as and when you need to. Things to be aware of here are that your funds will remain invested, so there is some part of an investment risk. If you take out large amounts, there is potentially subject to large tax. And the other thing is, once it's gone, it's gone. So if you draw down too much too quickly and it runs out, then that's that. There's no going back from that. If anything happens to you, then the funds will be paid to whoever you've nominated on death. And again, I'll mention that in a few slides' time. The other thing that I was talking about was full encashment. This is where you can, if you want, take all of the fund as a tax. As a lump sum. 25% again would be tax-free. The rest of it, though, would be taxed. And in their infinite wisdom, HMRC will assume that you're going to get that level of income in the month it's paid, month in, month out, and therefore you may well find yourself being charged quite a high level of tax. There are a couple of forms that you can complete to claim that back. But they're not going to highlight it for you. This is one of the areas where if you do have an advisor, they would be able to help you and do it for you. The things to think about here is that if it is sitting in your bank account, you're likely to spend it quicker. And again, once it's gone, it's gone. And your bank account may not be the most tax efficient place for your money to sit. But it is something that you can consider. We've got there potentially 100% tax-free. That's only if the amount itself would be under your personal allowance, and that's currently £12,570. I touched on financial advice because what could be the right thing for you is to do a combination of all of these things. So it could be that you look at having, I've mentioned the two types of income earlier, your essential income and your desired income. It might be that you have your essential income covered by a guaranteed pension annuity. You can then have your flexibility through your drawdown plan. That could be there for your sort of like I don't know if you might have sort of like a wedding to contribute towards, or you want that holiday of a lifetime, so you can take out chunks as and when you need it. It could be that 25% of your fund isn't quite enough to do whatever it is what you want to do when you retire, so you take a bit extra out. This is where a financial advisor comes into play, because they will be able to structure everything for you in the most tax efficient way, and help you get the retirement that you actually want. Now, I've mentioned tax-free cash, and just to show you how that works. So you've got here, this person has got a pot of £50,000. They want the maximum tax-free cash out. So let's say this is with Aviva. So they contact Aviva. They say, I'm past my 55th birthday or 57th birthday from 2028 onwards. And then magically that money will appear within their bank account. The rest of it will sit there and wait until you tell them what it is you want to do with those benefits. Care should be taken. If you take £1 more than the tax-free cash amount, you're then going to trigger something called the money purchase annual allowance, which means that will limit the amount that can actually be paid into your pension plan from both you and the company, and that will limit it to £10,000 a year. Because of the contribution levels that are available through CHP, if you are on a sort of like a slightly higher salary, what you don't want to do is limit the amount that can be paid into your pension because you've accidentally taken a bit more than the actual tax-free cash that's available. Again, this would be something that a financial advisor could help you with. I touched on what happens with the flexible drawdown plan. But if we have a look at how all of the death benefits are paid, so if something were to happen to you while you're still working for CHP, then you would get the value of the Aviva plan plus the life assurance that's provided from CHP. If you've left CHP but haven't taken your benefits yet, then your plan will be paid to whoever you've nominated. And this is where it's really key to keep your nominations up to date, because what will happen is Aviva will refer to your death benefit nomination and they will pay out the benefits in line with that. Obviously, CHP, they do love you, but they're not going to carry on paying life cover for you. But you may well have that in the company that you go to next. And in exactly the same way that I said you need to keep this death benefit nomination up to date, if you've got any previous pensions, are those nominations up to date? I mean, it could be that you've nominated someone 20 years ago that you no longer even speak to or are married to. So it's really important to keep all of your death benefit nominations up to date. If you were to pass away once you've actually got into retirement, then it's going to depend on what choices you made. So if you took all of the money as a lump sum, there's nothing left in the pension, so there's nothing payable from the pension. You could still have some money left in your bank account or in another investment, but nothing left from the pension to be paid to your nearest and dearest. If you did the guaranteed income or the annuity route, it will depend on how you structured it. So did you say that you wanted a spouse's pension? Did you say you wanted a guaranteed period? Again, so it's going to depend on what you said at the time of starting that guaranteed income. And as I mentioned, with the flexible drawdown plan, it's going to be the remaining pot that will be paid to whoever you've nominated. So it's really, really key to keep those nominations up to date. I'm going to touch on pension planning now. So there's 3 steps. You need to set a target. We've already touched on that. You then need to build a picture of what you've got, and then you need to keep it under review. So you might remember these slides from about 4 hours ago, where I was saying go through to the retirement living standards, have a look at your bank account, see what it is you're paying on a month in, month out basis, and set that desired, essential income and desired income. You can then build up a picture of what it is you've got. So you've got this plan. You might have previous plans, or you might have private pension plans. We've already touched on the state pension. You might have other savings that you've got earmarked, so ISAs or bonds. You could think, right, okay, when I retire, I'm going to downsize my property and live off some equity, or it could even be that you got inheritance. We tend to think of a retirement plan now as using all of these building blocks rather than I have a pension, that's my income in retirement. And again, this is where a financial advisor will become key, because they will look at all of your arrangements. They will sit down with you, they will find out exactly what it is that you want to achieve in retirement, and then they will get you the best plan possible. So it could be that you want to retire early and you've got ISA savings or bonds, and they say don't touch your pensions. Use those first, and then when those pensions get to maturity at age 65, that's when you should start drawing them, because then you're not going to have any penalties. So I know I've been banging on about this. As a nation, we seem to have a real phobia about paying people to tell us what to do with our money. In exactly the same way that you wouldn't buy a house without appointing a solicitor, I firmly believe that you shouldn't retire without appointing a financial advisor. Over the course of your retirement, it could save you tens of thousands of pounds. You do have a tie-in with a financial advisor, which Lynn will mention at the end. I just think it should be mandatory. It isn't. There are other places you can go to get guidance. Money-wise is one place where you can get guidance. However, they're not going to tell you what to do. They are just going to tell you what options you have. So if you want that certainty, paying for financial advice at retirement, I would suggest, is one of the key times to do it. I'll stop now on that. Scary figure. That's the amount of lost pensions or forgotten pensions in the UK. We would say have a pensions day. So the easiest way to go about this is get a pen and paper, write down all of the places you've ever worked, and then work out whether or not you had a pension with them. I mentioned Fred earlier, who worked at the same company, man and boy. We typically have 11 jobs throughout our lifetime now. So write them down and work out if you think you had a pension with them. Keep all that information in the one place, whether or not that's like a physical file, or if it's a file on a home laptop or phone, or whether it's on a thumb drive of some kind. Keep it all together, and once a year, just make sure you've got up-to-date statements or up-to-date values of everything. Not only will that make it easier for you, in the event that you do pass away, whatever's going to be an already really stressful and upsetting time for your nearest and dearest, it's going to be made a lot easier than them having to sort of like scramble around in the boxes in the loft trying to find out what pensions you had. I've popped a glass of Prosecco on there and said have a pensions day. You can have a glass of red wine on a rainy afternoon in sort of like in autumn or winter, but just keep everything together. There is light at the end of the tunnel, which I'll explain in a second. But if you go through there and you've got all your pension details, brilliant. What happens if you haven't? If you know the pension provider, just call them. If you know your policy number, but you moved and you didn't tell them, well, you can give them your policy number, and then you can give them your up-to-date details, and you'll be back on their radar. If you can't remember who the pension provider was and you can't find any paperwork, call your previous employer, tell them you work between X and Y, and they will tell you where that pension plan is. Again, you then just call them. It gets a little trickier if your previous employer is no longer in existence. So what we would suggest then is you use the pension tracing service, which is what that QR code is for. That will take you through to the government-backed service. If you type in trace my pensions, the first 3 or 4 that come up are going to be paid for examples. You don't need to pay for it. You can use the government website, and it will be able to track things down for you. Now, Tony won't agree with me on this, but there is going to, I'm a full like paid up member, and I fully believe that the pensions dashboard, that's being introduced by the government will become a reality within the next 18 months to 2 years. What that will do is it will actually identify any pension that is linked to your name, date of birth, and crucially national insurance number, and it will tell you what those pensions are and how much you've got, or if they're final salary benefits, what kind of benefit that you have with them. All of the major pension providers, Aviva included, have already signed up. However, the government aren't going to go live with this until everything is on there, and so members, when they go on there, or people when they go on there, are going to have a positive experience. It has been delayed and delayed and delayed, but I am confident that 18 months to 2 years from now, you won't need to be keeping all of your details. You won't need a pensions day, because you'll just be able to go on to the dashboard, pension dashboard. Once you've found everything, and this is whether or not that's now or through the dashboard, what you can do if you want to is move it into your CHP pension, take advantage of those lower annual management charges. With a DC pension pot, you don't have to take advice. Again, you might want to consider doing so, because there could be surrender penalties or exit penalties. You can go via Aviva, and they will flag if there are any penalties on your previous pension for you. So they will kind of say, well, you can, but you need to be aware of this. But again, it could be another good time to look at having a provider who can do it, advisor who could do it for you. Step 3, nearly finished. So you need to set your plan, work out what it is you've got, and then see if you're on track. Aviva have got a brilliant pension calculator. You can go on there, you can plug in all of your pension pots, and you can plug in any previous final salary benefits that you've got, and you can plug in what contributions you and CHP are making now, and it will project what your pension pot and what your pension could be at whichever age you want it in retirement. If you go through all of that and you're not on plan, then you might just need to make a few changes. Now, we're in a cost of living crisis, so it's very easy for me to say, oh, just stop spending as much and save a little bit extra. You'll be fine. It's not as straightforward as that. I have told the other groups that I found out not so long ago that Netflix had changed the way that they actually work. I've got 3 sons, 2 of them have now moved away from home and living in their own houses. I was still paying for the entire family to watch Netflix, not knowing that it now works on postcode. So the older 2 couldn't even watch it. So I've now reduced that from, I think it was £15.99 a month to £7.99 a month. It's only £8. I'm yet to go through all of my other subscriptions. I'm sure there are some savings that I can make. It's just little things like that you can do to maybe save that little bit extra. Or it could be that you want to go at age 62 and then you think, oh, the sums don't quite work, but if I went at 63 it would be. Or it might be that you think, oh, well, I know that I wanted X level of income for the first 5 years because I wanted to go on a round the world cruise and go right the way through America or whatever it might be. Then maybe you just need to rein back on that a little bit and not have the VIP treatment every year for the first 5 years or so. Conscious of time, pension scams, they're horrible. Unfortunately, they are a real thing. If anyone rings you and tells you that they can liberate your pension for you, get you more than 25% tax-free cash, give you a guaranteed investment with no risk, give you a bizarre kind of investment of parking spaces in Dubai, that seems to be quite popular at the moment. They're all signs of a scam, and the horrible thing that people are doing, or people are finding at the moment, is that they're following links from social media, so from Facebook, from Instagram or TikTok. They're thinking that they're going through to a recognised a company, but whether you can hear them sort of like advertised on radio all the time. It might be St James's Place or AJ Bell, and there's lots of others, advisors. you're going through, or you can be going through, to an actual scammer's website. So the first thing we would say is actually go into Google and type in the name of the company that you're wanting to get to. And before you interact or engage with anyone, if you go onto the FCA, so that's the Financial Conduct Authority register, if you go on there, you will be able to see not only the name of the company, but also the name of the individual, and you'll be able to see whether or not they are permitted to advise you. If you go through a recognised advisor, then if something goes wrong, you do have comeback. If you go through to, unfortunately, a scammer, then there is no comeback, and there isn't going to be a CEL or anyone who can get your money back for you, because unlike other types of scam, they convince you to sign paperwork to sign your money away. Please don't let somebody get hold of your hard-earned cash and ruin your retirement plans. That's it for me, and I'm really sorry I've been speaking for a long time. I'll now hand over to Tony.
Camille, thank you for that presentation. We've just had one question come through, and that relates to annuities. When we were talking about the options that people have when you get to retirement, someone's asked whether are all annuities lifetime annuities, or are they limited time annuities, i.e. 10, 15 years? It really does depend. So both types of annuities are available, either an annuity for your lifetime. You can also have it so it's payable to your spouse should you die. Also, it could be for a limited period as well. So if you wanted to take out an annuity for 5, 10, 15 years, you have both of those options available to you. That's the one question we had through. There's a couple of things that Camille mentioned in our presentation, and they're two things that are, if we had to give you any homework, the two areas we'd probably give you homework would be firstly around nomination forms, sometimes called expression of wish forms. Camille is right. So often we complete a nomination form when we first join a company, we leave that company, we forget about the pension, and we also forget about the nomination form as well. So do make sure, if your circumstances change, you're with a different partner, you're remarried, you had children, etc., make sure you're updating the nomination form, not just for the Aviva scheme you're currently in, but also for all the previous pension schemes you may have been in as well. Another thing is the pension planning. Camille's right, I'm an old cynic when it comes to the government dashboard. At the moment, I think definitely having that pensions day, keeping a record of the pensions as you go through your working career, because what you'll find is, we all have a CV. The CV says we work from this company from period A to period B. For your CV, just make sure you keep a note of the pension scheme that you're in as well, because at the moment it will make life a lot easier. I'm sure pension dashboards will come along in the next 2-3 years, but in the meantime, do keep that record of when you're in a scheme, so that should anything happen to you, it does make it easier for your dependents. I've got no other questions that have come through. I don't know if Lynn, if anything has come through directly to you. No, so nothing's come through there. So I think.
Do you want to let people know where they can get your financial advisor?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Or your financial advice, if you need any financial advice, you could use Charles Stanley, top floor of Myriad House, who won't charge unless they actually provide you with any services or any work or anything like that. If you would like a contact name, then just let me know and I can give you an email address. If not, just pop up there and ask for an appointment. I was just going to say as well, if you think of any questions after today's session, let me know and I'll do my best to get you the answer. And if you'd like to change your contribution percentage, just send me an email and I could do that for you as well. I just want to say a big thank you to both Camille and Tony for a really great informative session. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
see you again next year.